And so John Howe, we mentioned him earlier, the cousin of King George. So he ends up trying to work something out with the colonies. And at this point, which is funny, it's like the opposite. Like first the colonies were like, hey, here's this olive branch treaty. We can try to, and Britain's like, no. And now John Howe is like, hey, maybe we can try to, and at this point, it's like, we're already so deep in.
Yeah.
At this point, you know.
We got to finish this.
Yeah. So that ends up going nowhere because at this point the colonies have already decided like no, like we're declaring for independence and everything.
And thousands of people have died already at this point. Like you really can't wash your hands of it and pretend like it didn't happen. Like, yeah, it's a lot.
And so yeah, during this is when we have actually the Declaration of Independence actually gets signed. It's always been crazy to me that like the war was still going because like in my head I'm like, oh okay, the Revolutionary War ends. Now let's go ahead and get this Declaration of Independence. It literally was like right in the thick of it while we were losing.
Yeah.
We were just like, no, we're just still going to do this.
No, here's your letter. It's like, wouldn't you have done this before we started this war?
You're right.
Well, and I think too, like the fact that the war was going was what forced their hand. It's like, if we're not going to take any deals from them, we need to formalize this. Otherwise, like we can't even have it on the table. Like this isn't a trade dispute. This isn't a taxation parliamentary issue anymore. This is like we're breaking away for sure. And our good friend TJ, he locked himself in a hotel and just wrote out the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
TJ, who's that? Thomas Jefferson.
I forgot that he went by TJ.
Yeah, Tej. He wrote out the Declaration.
Yeah, he wrote it out because he read. So Thomas Paine is this figure that's pretty overlooked, I think.
Yeah. The Lesser Thomas.
Yeah, the Lesser Thomas writes out this pamphlet called Common Sense, which I actually bought and read like just a few and becomes this huge like best-selling I don't know, but it's spread everywhere, and so that ends up being what becomes the Declaration of Independence and everything. So, Thomas Jefferson obviously super inspired by that, and Thomas Paine was very like, no, like we need independence. Like it was basically like his rebuttal on why we shouldn't be a part of Britain anymore. Was basically what it was, and so Thomas Jefferson, all the delegates and everything take that, and that's when they actually start signing it. And it was declared on July 2nd. Was like, okay, the document's done. And John Adams was like, oh, July 2nd, this is going to be like the biggest day. We're going to remember this for every year. It's going to be celebrated. And so he was close. But it wasn't until we actually started signing it, which is you have John Hancock, because happens to be the first person who signs it. But which I didn't really, this was something I didn't know actually, was I thought everyone signed it on July 4th, but it was actually like a whole month went by and people were still having the delegates of the colonies were showing
travel from Delaware through a war zone around I'm going to Philadelphia.
Yeah, so it wasn't until like August 2nd, I think, when like the last person signed it. But John Hancock and being the first one to sign it on July 4th, that's kind of obviously how it really begins. I mean, we're just like now our own country, but we are like
if you can keep it.
Yeah, if you can keep it.
Yeah, because we are not out of the woods yet.
Yeah,
I think Thomas Paine kind of gets overlooked, but I mean, well,
I think, and I don't know a ton about this actually, but I think he had like a lot of huge falling out with a lot of just the people of his time and everything. I remember seeing something where like even when during his funeral, like no one like showed up to it.
He wasn't an ultra successful person.
Okay, yeah,
like in general, like he had tried other careers. He really was not like a successful person. And he kind of had big radical ideas and just would not compromise on them.
Okay.
Which, he was not a go along to get along kind of person. So that did not win him a lot of friends. But he, like, we'll get to the Constitution and like the Federalist Papers. Just like the Federalist Papers, Common Sense was really for the common person.
I can't remember if I said, but Common Sense was the pamphlet.
Yes.
He wrote it.
Yeah. Common Sense was the pamphlet. And that really helped the common person understand, like, wait, why are we fighting? Like, why are we in a war? And like, it would be nice to be free, but also, like, were we really not free before? Like, again, like you said in the beginning, the vast majority of the general population did not want anything to do with either side.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they didn't like taxes, but they didn't want to fight a war. And so now we're declaring independence on behalf of all of the people in the colonies. And we really need buy-in from these people to at least understand what we're talking about. Otherwise, if we do win, what's to stop us from just having perpetual revolutions over and over and over again? Mm-hmm. And that common sense pamphlet really laid out for general people, this is why we should break away from King George.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's as much of a figure as he's not talked about or referenced very much. I mean, it was kind of because of him.
He's definitely a footnote in American history, but
so we declare independence at the same time that George Washington is just at his
taking another
downfall.
fat L.
Yeah.
It's great times for George.
So this is kind of like basically the last chance. If this doesn't work, this battle doesn't work, then it's like, he totally would have been replaced. They were already talking about it.
Yeah, with like Horatio Gates or whatever.
Yeah. And so we have Christmas of 1776. So we're like, 6 months removed from the Declaration of Independence.
I always think of Shane Gillis's bit about George Washington being a 6'2", red-haired giant with a sword in the woods with like donkey teeth, holding a sword and then crossing the river.
I mean, at this point, he was like, I don't know how much sanity he had left.
Probably not. It's real cold in Pennsylvania.
So we have the Battle of Trenton. So this is a very big turning point. This is kind of interesting thing because it was totally like a lucky, let's just say, hand by God.
It had to be,
because
because the British had hired the Hessians, which are German mercenaries, and these guys were like top tier, like Blackwater level.
Yeah, we haven't actually talked about that yet. So as we're trying to get France involved, to help us,
France hates Britain more than they like us.
Yeah,
and that's what Ben Franklin and John Adams are playing on. Don't you want to stick a finger in Britain's eye by helping us break away?
Right.
Because it's a hard sell to like, hey, King of France, would you like to support an uprising against the King of England? It's like,
right.
No, I'm king. Why would I ever give credence to a popular uprising against the monarchy? But he hates Britain so much, he entertains.
So, while that's happening, you have also Britain getting help from Germany, basically. So these Hessians, mercenaries, are there in Trenton, and it's Christmas, and they're like, we're already winning the war, basically. What does it matter? So they spend like basically the whole night just like partying and drinking and all sorts of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, the Hessians were not known for their civility.
The Sin City before Vegas, basically.
Yeah, it's New Jersey, so
right.
Just think of New Jersey.
Right. And so, but that gives like a really good opportunity. So for the militia, George Washington, he gets his troops through, and they have to cross this river. I think it was in Delaware.
It is in Delaware.
Okay, and it's like middle of the night. It takes so long. They were trying to like see if they could attack in the middle of the night, but it takes so long for them to cross. It's actually like the next morning by the time they get there, and so they're like, "Oh crap, we already botched it." And that war battle started.
Billy froze in the boat trying to get over here because it's December. In New Jersey in 1776. No, still
76. Yeah, right at the end of it.
So it was rough going, but they make it across, and in like the early morning, like no one's on watch because the Hessians are all drunk and the British are like whatever. Everyone's all hungover, and the Americans just sort of slip in and start taking out key officers, and they start infiltrating the fortifications there really before they even mount a defense. So they have a massive surprise head start. And it's it's a very, very decisive win for the Americans on, I guess, would that be Boxing Day? No, it'd be Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Because they went over Christmas Eve. So, I mean, that was a for sure Hail Mary. There's no way this is going to work. If this doesn't work, we lose.
Mm-hmm.
And he pulled a rabbit out of the hat, and the right mix of circumstances for the battle.
Well, and the fact also there was a huge the weather that night was really in the militia's favor because there a huge fog set over the river, so they were able to hide.
Yeah, they couldn't see them.
Yeah, so it ended up working out really well. Do you know future president who was involved in this battle?
No.
James Monroe.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
first president.
Little
Yeah.
Jimmy.
Yeah, he was just a boy.
Little Jimmy.
Fighting alongside George Washington.
We'll get to him later.
Yeah.
We will watch your career with great interest.
Yeah. Yes. Speaking of, but so yeah, so definitely a desperate win that we needed, and so that kind of gives enough morale boost to where we start seeing some other winning battles happen on our side and everything, and now we have the Battle of Saratoga happens with the colonists, which we win because of, again, we mentioned him earlier, Benedict Arnold, and which actually leads to King George firing his cousin John Howe.
Yeah.
And so there's a whole split because of that. And so, but of course, Benedict doesn't really get the credit he deserves for it either.
He really deserved the credit for that one too, and I think it was Horatio Gates who got the credit for that because he was kind of the. No, it was it Green again? No, Horatio Gates was later in the war, so I think it might have been Nathan Green.
I may have lumped that one in with something else, but
oh well. Benedict Arnold didn't get the credit. This is twice now, and he is royally pissed off. And I think he does have a little bit of a right to be upset because it was his idea. This was his plan. He had his own ambitions, but wasn't he wounded in Saratoga?
Yeah,
he was shot in the leg.
Yeah, he actually walked with a limp the rest of his life.
Yeah,
because of that. So just
poor Benedict. Poor Benedict. He really. I have a soft spot in my heart for Benedict Arnold.
We'll get to the real downfall of that here actually pretty shortly.
Yeah.
So, amongst some of the winning that Washington's getting, he does end up losing Philadelphia, though, which kind of, again, puts his job on the line.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of these, okay, we win, the smaller stuff, but when there's one that, really counts, aside from, Trenton, it's he loses everything.
Pretty decisive.
And he actually loses again from, it was a flanking maneuver, so he falls for it again.
Yeah.
And
Philadelphia is the American capital of this point.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's a massive psychological
the capital isn't. There is no
loss.
Washington D.C. yet.
Yeah,
so
it's all in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
and he loses it.
Right. But at this time, so like we said before, John Adams and Benjamin Franklin, they're in France to join their side, and they're able to convince France to join. So then again, another miracle when all hope is lost. Yeah. France shows up, all these troops show up and everything to help with the colonists and everything, which really starts to change the weight of the scales at that point. But like we mentioned with Benedict Arnold, so he starts getting accused of being pro-British and having super pro-British sentiments. And kind of there's some shady stuff to where he's kind of using the war to make himself really wealthy. And there's this kind of which I don't know if it's just kind of hey, if I'm not going to get any credit, I'm going to pay myself back. So it's you really blame him for, but the point that it's hard to claim integrity.
Yeah, the glory of battle and prestige from being a winning general has kind of worn off not once but twice now. So it's all right, if this is just every man for himself, then I'm gonna get mine. Yeah. And I've already been shot, and I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this already. So yeah, it's not the right thing, but also fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice.
Sure. And Washington, so he sends him a letter to kind of reprimand him on the whole thing. Right, and it was kind of more just like, I guess, like a slap on the wrist, or kind of, it wasn't
because
like
he had to say something
Right.
to address all these rumors, and he did not know that at Saratoga that Arnold was basically like won the battle. Like his strategy and his soldiers kind of won the battle, because he I think it was Gates who was kind of his counterpart general. Gates wanted to sit back and let the British attack them, and Benedict Arnold said, "No, we win when we press the attack and take it to them and put them on the back foot." So Gates did his strategy, and Gates and Arnold kind of had a dinner time spat, and since Gates was actually the commanding general, he kind of dismissed Arnold to his quarters. So when the battle actually happened, Arnold said, "Screw this, I'm going to go and do my plan." And that plan actually helped win the battle. Then he gets shot, and then he gets reprimanded. And then he gets reprimanded again by George Washington, who he's like, "Notice me, senpai. I just want a battlefield commission.
Yeah.
I just want to be your best friend, George." And George says, "No, I don't like you."
And then, yeah, that leads, unfortunately, to Arnold siding with the British. So I guess the rumors are obvious that they were true anyway.
Yeah,
I guess if
yeah.
it's like, well, these people will treat me better. So he actually gives all these war plans and stuff to the British, and like really royally screws over Washington, just the rest of the militia and everything in the process.
Yeah.
So it's a sad story with him. So
he I don't know if you were going to get into it, but at West Point,
I don't have any notes for West.
Oh, so basically Benedict Arnold, his deal with the British was like, if you give me a general like an officer commission with the British Army, I'll secure for you a fort, like a big fort. And West Point, where the military academy is now, it's in New York, but it's like very strategically placed, like on a river where you have to like navigate weird, and it's like a bottleneck. And so after George Washington reprimands Benedict Arnold, I think a little bit of time passes, and then George Washington, he has a couple small wins. He gains some supplies and materials and some leverage, and then he says to Benedict Arnold, "Okay, you are still kind of one of my top generals. I'm going to make you commander of the Northern Army." So like his second in command, basically. And at this point, Benedict Arnold has already made his deal with the British for a fort. And so Benedict Arnold, very surprisingly, is like, no, I don't want to be your second in command. I just want to be commander of, say, West Point, there. And it's kind of like a weird, out of the way fortress. It's not like in the thick of the action, but he's like, all right, I guess. And so, yeah, he gains the command of West Point and starts giving all those plans and fortifications and schematics to the British. But before they're able to attack West Point, they get found out. Like another general visits, and then that general gets arrested by the colonists. And that leads back to Benedict Arnold, who kind of escapes into Britain. Like he's not immediately captured, but yeah, poor Benedict.
Yeah, it all kind of goes down for him.
Yeah.
And almost really goes down for us.
Yeah, no,
it's hard to be too like sympathetic. I mean, could have completely like lost the war for the.
Oh yeah, I mean, just if you,
for us.
It's like any relationship. If you're not happy with the relationship, don't cheat. Just break up.
Yeah.
Just quit. Just resign your
Sound
position.
advice.
Yeah, just resign your commission. Don't betray us to the British and get everyone you've ever looked up to killed just because you're sore about it.
So because of this, I mean, basically both sides now are just like this close to losing.
Yeah.
They were like running out of like money and supplies like on both sides of it and everything. And so this is kind of now like speaking of the Patriot, now the South Carolina, or the Carolinas, I guess, and the southern colonies start getting more involved. And then luckily we have the French show up in greater numbers and everything. And it's still just like really like neck and neck at this point.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple battles we kind of glossed over a little bit. You brought up the Arnold stuff, but this does lead to kind of basically like the final showdown in Yorktown and everything. So
before we get to Yorktown,
okay.
I want to say, like, the Southern campaign, like, this was definitely the turning point in the war, but also because the Southerners fought differently than the Northerners did. Like, they did the standard Napoleonic line formations for a while, and then eventually they said to themselves, we're never going to win this stand-up contest, but we have really good sharpshooters because they hunt all the time. Why don't we just target their officers? Because once we target their officers and they have no command, we win. And it was not sporting at all to target. Like, it was like not a crime. Like, it's a war, people die.
The most unethical way.
It was
to go
very
about
ungentlemanly to intentionally target officers. And so I think there was one battle where allegedly some British soldier had George Washington like in his sights, but knew it was George Washington, so didn't shoot.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear about this.
I think it was before Saratoga. I think it might have been Trenton.
Oh, okay.
I think so. But the Southern colonists were like, hey, we're going to lose, so we're going to do what we need to do. And so they do like the hit and run tactics, like in The Patriot.
You're right. And I'm thinking about the carriage thing with the kids and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. They do the hit and run thing. They will shoot officers and then run off.
Fast and accurate.
That's World War II.
No, Mel Gibson says.
Oh, he does that too.
Yeah.
Oh, see, this is just a trope.
Okay.
So yeah, they really use that to their advantage. They fight an unconventional guerrilla war style that the British, there's no counter to it, because they are giant red targets with big white X's that you can see from 100 yards off, and they have no counter to it. And that's part of what helps the Southern campaign really gain traction and be able to make their way up to Yorktown.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, no, that's good. Obviously, with the war being as close as it was, I guess something had to fight dirty.
Yeah.
One side had to fight dirty at some point.
And this is years long now. Like this war 1779 or 1780.
Yeah, so this has been going on for
5 years now.
Yeah, I think over 5 years. I mean, it's kind of like one of the wars American for boots on the ground.
Yeah,
kind of war.
Yeah, and George Washington is struggling with like soldiers mutinying, like
spies.
Yeah, there's spies, there's traitors. His own sort of personal doubts about if he can even do this, because people keep resigning their contracts come up. He has to beg them to stay, and then miraculously most of them do. And then near like 1778, 1779, like the Continental Congress doesn't have any money anymore.
Yeah,
like the French are just watching the Americans take loss after loss after loss. Like we're not going to send you more money. Like you have to win. We can't just throw money at this. And it gets to the point where these soldiers' contracts come up, and George Washington's like, okay, if you stay past your contract, we'll give each man $10 extra.
Right, yeah.
And then he says to Philadelphia, I need $10 extra for 10,000 soldiers. Like, okay, I guess. And then eventually it gets to the point where they just don't have any money.
I guess we should also mention too with the type of bribery that I guess like had to take place.
It was not ethical.
Right. Well, even in the sense of, because it's like, you have also like Native Americans fighting on both sides as well. We didn't really touch on that, but
the British they started that because like, hey, free soldiers.
You're right. Yeah.
And they're not really even people. Yeah. So.
And then also even having black slaves and
which George Washington refused. George Washington refused to allow slaves to fight for the Continental Army, I think, until like later in the war. But the British pretty much immediately said, if you get free and join the British, you will be like, if you escape slavery, join the British Army, we'll give you your freedom if you fight for us. That was pretty enticing.
Right. Well, yeah, and even being told like, hey, like we'll give you your independence if you fight for on like the colony side. And then, I mean, unfortunately, then it didn't actually happen.
It's like, yeah, just kidding.
Yeah.
Your property, you can't actually sign a contract, so
right.
you know.
So,
undergirding all of that is also the irony of the Declaration of Independence saying, "We hold these truths to be self-evident: all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." And the slaves are like, "For me," and everyone's like, "Not for you."
Right.
Not really. It is interesting though. Thomas Jefferson, like he in the Virginia Congress, he drafted like a bill to abolish slavery, and it immediately failed. And he did have slaves, so like the irony of writing this thing, and this is a theme like through American history up to the Civil War, of like this big Declaration of Independence saying everyone's equal, and then not everyone is equal. And I was thinking about it the other night of like slaves really were like a major economic driver for like production. It would be like outlawing oil. Like you can do stuff with horse and carriage. You can make a country run.
And they're just too deep into it.
We're too deep into it now. We can't turn back. A lot of people have a lot of money in this that we can't pay them back for like we can't buy them. We can't eminent domain them and buy them. Like we're just in it. We're trying to win a war. We're not going to pick this fight internally. We're just going to leave it be. We're going to kick the can down the road. So yeah, that'll come. Slavery will come back later.
Yeah, I'm interested. I don't want to get too ahead, but I'm with everything that I've learned with like George Washington, like attitude towards slavery, like post revolution.
Yeah.
And everything. It's like really interesting how it's kind of like that already the attitude towards like slavery being like evil as it is like really started to happen post Revolutionary War and everything. So it's like anyway, there's a whole bunch. Well, definitely.
There's another war about that.
Yeah, right. So we have the Battle of Yorktown. So this is like the final showdown, basically. And so if you don't know where Yorktown is, it's like right on like the coast of the Atlantic and everything. And so basically, from my understanding, is like the Brits kind of just got held up and cornered there, basically, and there's about 7,000 of them, and it was just a huge crushing defeat where the colonists and the French and everyone else just came in and was able to just like wreak havoc. And I know tons were like captured. In fact, it was 7,000 were captured. And so that basically ends the war. There's still like some loose ends you got to tie up and everything. But on October 1781, so I mean, when we started, 1764 was when like the tax stuff. So it's like this is like a long time coming and everything. So takes like I don't know if you have anything to add to the Yorktown, but
no, the French definitely came in handy because they had a navy. And they really did, like the British got suckered into the bay and the French were able to kind of lock them in there. Also, General Cornwallis, which is a funny, very British name. General Cornwallis got stuck in there, and there was another general up north who was going to reinforce him. There's another general up north who was going to reinforce him. And because of his own hubris, I'm going to win the war. I'm going to do a decisive blow. He didn't go and reinforce Cornwallis in Yorktown. He went and fought like the Southerners as they were coming up, but they were able to cut off the outside of Yorktown while the established Northern Army kind of used their French Navy to blockade from the sea. So it was like a cascade of errors because of, I can't remember the general's name, but there were two generals and they were supposed to reinforce each other, and Cornwallis was in Yorktown and the other general did not reinforce him, and that caused him to lose. Because he wanted to win the war and he just didn't.
So October 1781.
Clinton. Clinton.
Okay, yeah.
General Clinton was going to be reinforced or reinforce, and he didn't do it.
Good old Bill.
Good old Bill. That was George.
Yeah, right. So yeah, basically after that ends and everything, there's some peace treaties that, you know, things take time. The war really finishes up like 1783, everything. And then George Washington heads to Mount Vernon and it's like along the coast, which then leads to his presidential campaign and John Adams, and we'll get way more into them and everything. But in a gist, that's kind of a
That's the American Revolution.
right.
It was a whole lot of losing and very, very key, like a handful of key wins. There's really, like, honestly and truly, like from a tactical perspective, like there's just no way that this should have worked, honestly. So you have to think there's some sort of like divine intervention happening here. Like the weather is just so,
Right.
or you know, it's the great man of history. Could Horatio Gates have held the Continental Army together at Valley Forge, or you know, during brutal winters and mutinies? Could he have convinced? Could any other person other than George Washington have convinced the Continental Congress to give them more money, or could anyone other than Benjamin Franklin have used the right timing of events to get support from the French? I don't think so. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you hear about, George Washington, and yeah, he's obviously a very important piece in this whole thing. But I mean, John Adams and Benjamin Franklin pulling off getting France involved when they did. I mean, it's a pretty underrated segment.
Yeah.
Into this whole thing.
Yeah.
And so
we would not have won the war without France.
Right. And it's like, I mean, one of the most, because it's like, yeah, John Adams, he's not a soldier. He's not going to be on the, he's a politician. Like he's a lawyer. Yeah. And so just kind of using, I don't know, just all the pieces just like had to come together.
Yeah.
And many different types of strengths and stuff like had to come together and everything off. So, yeah, I mean, I guess now, God bless America.
Yeah.
Good thing we'll never face another civil war.
Yeah.
Everything's all great from here on out.
It's smooth sailing from here on out. We know exactly what we're doing, guys. Don't worry. Totally fine.
But yeah, okay. Well, I think next we'll get into George Washington and his life and presidency. Just all the unattended politics that play into all that. And so
yes, His Majesty King Washington. Oh wait, no, not that. Some he had a different title. That was a whole part of it.
Yeah. So okay. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Here you can follow us on, or follow you.
I don't know. We don't have any social media. I think we're too afraid to actually put the title of the podcast as a Twitter handle.
You can. I'll put links in the description. Just our own personal stuff. I don't really care to make an actual like Instagram.
Oh, now we have to.
It.
Now we have to.
Right. But okay. Anyway, thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you guys next time. And yeah.